It's Friday, March 28th. This is an end of the day SPY recap. It's also end of the week. And quite frankly, it's close enough to the end of the month and quarter where you can kind of look at that a little bit, even though that technically has one more day to go, I think. So we'll do that. But in terms of today, first of all, just to get the obvious out of the way, I mean, it was a two-down day. We're below the midpoint of the prior day. We opened up below the pre-market range and went lower right out of the gates. Set up a very nice sell opportunity. If we look at the intraday chart, again, just very straightforward from the way I look for things. First bar started red, broke down on bar two. There's your sell signal below the pre-market low range especially, and then it continued, and then you had a day down all day long. There wasn't even a real solid green bar until the very end, one here and two here, and we just kind of settled down there. So all day long, opportunities to sell. Opportunities to sell out of the gates. It wasn't easy to continue with it unless you just felt strongly the momentum was there. I think you went to the very short. Once it came down, we had the targets of these two bars down here, and I've been discussing all week that if we can come down a little further and get through the midpoint of that prior week, we're going to the lows of that week. So that's what happened. We ended up with a 3 bar on this week. When I see a 3 bar on a time frame, I'm thinking reversal. It doesn't mean it's going to happen immediately, but when I see inside bars, I always talk about how I look for failures on breakouts and to go the opposite way. When I look at 3 bars, it's also broadening formations well, it's not all broadening formation, but like the inside bar, but I mean, it's a higher high and a lower low, and that broadening formation can then start a higher high again if it wants to do that. So you're looking for reversal signals out of here. On a 3 bar, those signals either are, we start down and take out that low and then immediately come up to the midpoint of that bar. That could be a 3-3 all the way back up. That's rare, but it happens. You can get a 3, maybe a 2 down and then a 2 up. That's a great reversal signal. Or the 3 and then an inside bar. If this would have closed with a little bit of a buying tail, maybe you would have an inside activity, and then the breakout to the upside of that inside bar 2 weeks later could be a good buy signal. So we're going to see if that unfolds here. If it doesn't and it continues lower after a big red bar, then you're broadening out on a higher time frame to higher time frame targets. So the weekly chart, we start going to the monthly and the quarterly and the yearly charts to see what the higher time frames may be. If we decide to just broaden, lower on this time frame but not reverse, we're going to other time frame targets. So let's look quickly at the big higher time frames just to kind of get a feel for what might be unfolding. First of all, I'm looking at the yearly chart now. So clearly, we're below the open, we're red. And we took out the high of the previous year. So if we get down all the way through the midpoint of this year, then we could kind of like the weekly chart, this week we can go all the way to those lows. I'm kind of not anticipating that. But it's possible. I mean, like this year, we didn't take out that high, I don't think, but we started red and we were red all year long until the flip of the next year, which then went green. So you had to wait an entire year before you really felt comfortable being on the buy side. So that might be happening here. But what I sense is developing since we have broadening action on the weekly chart. And if I show you the quarterly chart now, that's also formed higher highs and lower lows. So this is ready to reverse too. And that's why I can sense that we might test a little lower here into next quarter, but not get below, if we look at spread it out, this is the year last year, would not get below the halfway point of that year and eventually reverse higher. It still might take 3 months before, if we go 2 down and 2 up to do that. But, when you see just because that's the actual signal we're heading higher, we can get earlier signs of that, kind of like this quarterly bar, was an outside bar to the downside, and it had a little buying tail at the end. But then the next quarter, right from the open, started green and we headed up. That gave you the inside bar and then the signal to the upside. But this whole month was green from the open. So next month in April, if we kind of test a little bit lower and then immediately get green, we can start, feeling, that we're heading higher. So keep that in mind. And I almost sense that's what's developing. I don't know if it's going to happen right out of the gates. We're going to go a little lower first and then higher. But I almost sense that this yearly chart, that I showed you, there's a long way to go to get to that bottom, even though it's possible. And I sense more will hold the midpoint of that and move up. But once again, on the yearly chart, just to highlight it, if we do kind of go a little lower first, then time, goes on in the year, and then we come up a little bit, it doesn't seem like we're getting ready to really go through that open, turn it green, and have a momentum year to the upside. So I could see this year, even if we reverse up a little bit, being more of a choppy year and a small little bar by the end. And then all of a sudden into next year, and it's a long way off, but it's something to think about. We can get like a 2 up, 2 down, and then we can be targeting on the year, not only, a red year, but then we have targets below. So at the moment, we don't really have a target below. We're just trying to see if we hold the midpoint on the yearly chart. And the quarterly chart, like I said, is broadening. So that's ready to reverse if it wants to. And the monthly chart, at this point, we want to see if we kind of, here are the next targets down below. Like I said, if that weekly chart is broadening and doesn't want to reverse, it's heading to higher time frame targets. So maybe we head down here on the monthly chart, a little bit lower into next month before reversing up. But we're going to look, here's the purple line. We're going to see where that open is. Let's go to the weekly chart. The purple line, which was, the open of this week here, we're going to see where it opens, next week and the next quarter. And that's going to be our reference point. If we head a little lower first, if we come back above that and turn everything green, then we could be starting to reverse to the upside. So we'll keep that in mind. So that's kind of my big picture look at things. We have the 3 bar on the weekly chart. So this could be in some kind of, we could be targeting down here a little bit, and we'll go day by day, and we'll see what the open is of the week and the quarter and monitor that. And if it stays red, we're going to stay red, along with the yearly continuity. But things could start to reverse in this area. I'm not predicting it, but I kind of know what to expect. And that's why I kind of do these recaps to kind of have a what if scenarios and all these different time frames. So it was very clear, to me anyway, that once we reversed here, we were kind of taking these 5 days of an inside, range here, and we failed to break out. And then once we started lower, we had the potential to come back to the midpoint of that range and take out the low of the range. And that's all we've done. And there's been some good sell opportunities the last 3 days. So anyway, that's where we stand today. Very good day to the downside for puts, and interesting outlook as we start next month and next quarter, and start kind of keeping some of these scenarios in mind.